Hi friends, this is Jawad Khan here once again, and in this video I'm gonna tell you about 14 negative important short forms which are used by a native English speaker. So let's begin our video without wasting much time. You may also see here understanding 14 negative short forms which are used by a native English speaker. Understanding 14 important negative short forms which are used by a native English speaker. So the first short form is isn't. Isn't is the short form of is not. Is not is shortened to isn't. For example, it isn't raining. It isn't raining. Okay, similarly the negative short form which is aren't or simply aren't. In British English it is aren't, like uncle's aunt, but in the American English it is aren't. Okay, aren't. Okay, and it's the short form of are not. Are not is shortened to aren't or simply aren't. For example, they aren't here in the British English, but in the American English it is they aren't here. Okay, similarly we have another short form, negative short form, which is wasn't in the British English, but in the American English it is wasn't, and it's the short form of was not. Was not is shortened to wasn't or wasn't. For example, I wasn't hungry last night in British English. I wasn't hungry last night, but in the American English it is I wasn't hungry last night. Okay, you may also see here is not is shortened to isn't, and we have the example sentence is it isn't raining. Okay, similarly another short form which is aren't or simply aren't, like uncle's aunt. In British English it is aunt. Okay, are not is shortened to aren't or aunt. For example, they aren't here or they aren't here. Okay, similarly the other negative short form which is wasn't or wasn't. In American English it is wasn't, but in the British English it is wasn't. Okay, so it's the short form of was not, and we have the example sentence is I wasn't hungry last night. Or I wasn't hungry last night. In the American English it is I wasn't hungry last night, but in the British English it is I wasn't hungry last night. Okay, similarly we have another negative short form which is wouldn't. In British English it is wouldn't, but in the American English it is weren't, and it's the short form of were not. Were not is shortened to weren't or weren't. For example, they weren't outside, or they weren't outside. In British English it is weren't, or is cut it out in the British English. They weren't outside, but in the American English it is they weren't outside. Okay, similarly we have another negative short form which is hasn't. Hasn't is the short form of has not. Has not is shortened to hasn't, and we have the example sentence is he hasn't got a car. Okay, similarly we have another negative short form which is haven't. Okay, repeat after me. It is haven't. Haven't is the short form of have not. Have not is shortened to haven't, and we have the example sentence is I haven't been to America. In my whole life, from the past until now, I haven't been to America. Sometimes a native English speaker simply cut it out the T present at the last and says only I haven't been to America. Okay, you may also see here the examples. Were not is shortened to weren't or weren't. In British English it is weren't, but in the American English it is weren't, and we have the example sentence is they weren't outside in American English, but in the British English it is they weren't outside. Okay, similarly the other negative short form which I told you is hasn't. Hasn't is the short form of has not, and we have the example sentence is he hasn't got a car. Okay, similarly haven't. Haven't is the short form of have not, but have not is shortened to haven't, and we have the example sentence is I haven't been to America. I haven't been to America. I haven't been to America, or simply I haven't been to America. Okay. Similarly, we have the negative short form, which is hadn't, hadn't or hadn't, hadn't. Okay, hadn't or hadn't. Okay, and we have the example sentence is I hadn't seen him for 2 years. I hadn't seen him for 2 years, and it's the short form of had not. Had not is short into hadn't, hadn't. Okay, hadn't. The pronunciation is hadn't. Okay. And we have the example sentence is I hadn't seen him for 2 years. I hadn't seen him for 2 years. I hadn't seen him for 2 years. Okay. Similarly, the another negative short form, which is can't. Can't in American English, but in the British English it is can't. Can't. In American English it is can't. Can't. Okay. Sometimes the T is cut it out by the native English speakers and says only can. Can. For example, George can't drive the car. George can't drive the car in American English, but in the British English it is George can't drive the car. George can't drive the car in British English. George can't drive the car. Okay, and it's the short form of cannot. Cannot is short into can't in American English, but in the British English it is can't. Can't. Okay. Similarly, we have another negative short form, which is couldn't. Couldn't in British English, couldn't, but in the American English it is couldn't, couldn't, couldn't. Okay, couldn't, and it's the short form of could not. Could not is short into couldn't or simply couldn't, couldn't. And we have the example sentence is, which is I couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't sleep last night, or simply I couldn't sleep last night in American English. I couldn't sleep last night. Okay, you may also see here hadn't, hadn't. Hadn't is the short form of had not. Negative short form of had not. And we have the example sentence is I hadn't seen him for 2 years. I hadn't seen him for 2 years. Okay. Similarly, can't. Can't in American English, but in the British English it is can't. And it's the short form of cannot. Cannot. Okay, and we have the example sentence is in American English it is George can't drive the car. George can't drive the car. Okay, but in the British English it is George can't drive the car. George can't drive the car. George can't drive the car. Okay, similarly, couldn't. Couldn't in British English, couldn't, but in the American English it is couldn't. Couldn't. Okay, and it's the short form of could not. Could not. And we have the example sentence is I couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't sleep last night in American English, but in the British English it is I couldn't sleep last night. I couldn't sleep last night. Okay, similarly we have another negative short forms, which are won't, won't or simply won't, won't, won't or won't. And it's the short form of will not. Will not is short into won't or won't. And we have the example sentence is we won't be here tomorrow. We won't be here tomorrow. We won't be here tomorrow. Or we won't be here tomorrow. We won't be here tomorrow. Okay. Similarly, we have the short form, which is wouldn't. Wouldn't. Wouldn't is the short form of would not. Would not is short into wouldn't. Wouldn't. And we have the example sentence is, which is I wouldn't like to be an actor. 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 Okay, similarly we have another short form, which is shouldn't. Shouldn't in American English. Shouldn't. Shouldn't. And we have the example sentence is, which is you shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. That's the advice which I am giving to him or her, that you shouldn't work so hard in American English. But in the British English it is you shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. Okay, they simply cut it out, the T present at the last, and says only you shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. Okay, you may also see here will not is shortened to won't, and we have the example sentence is, which is we won't be here tomorrow. We won't be here tomorrow. Okay, would not. Would not is shortened to wouldn't. Wouldn't. And we have the example sentence is I wouldn't like to be an actor. I wouldn't like to be an actor. I wouldn't like to be an actor. Okay. Shouldn't. In American English, it is shouldn't. Should not is short into shouldn't. You shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. Okay, but in the British English, it is shouldn't. Shouldn't. So the example sentence is, you shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. You shouldn't work so hard. Okay. Similarly, we have another negative short forms which are mustn't. Mustn't. Mustn't is the short form of must not. Must not is short into mustn't. And we have the example sentence is, you mustn't too much about this. You mustn't worry too much about this. You mustn't worry too much about this. You mustn't worry too much about this. Okay. Similarly, the another negative short form which is needn't. 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 Needn't is the short form of need not. Need not is short into needn't. Needn't. And we have the example sentence is, you needn't come until later. You needn't come until later. You needn't come until later. You may also see here, must not is short into mustn't. And we have the example sentence is, you mustn't worry too much about this. You mustn't worry too much about this. You mustn't worry too much about this. Okay. Similarly, another negative short form which is needn't. 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 Okay, and it's the short form of need not. You needn't come until later. You needn't come until later. You needn't come until later. Okay, so that's all about 14 negative important short forms which are used by a native English speaker, whether he or she belongs to America or whether he or she belongs to Britain. So that's all about today's lesson. Hope you liked my video, and if you liked it, please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that you'll get all the regular notifications of all the videos which I'll upload on YouTube. So thanks for watching and have a great day.